No matter how many times you say, "Do your homework," your child just won't budge. Sound familiar? To get them to do their homework, you might promise extra game time. Offer a bigger allowance if they work hard, or even resort to scolding, saying, "That's enough." But do these methods actually work? More importantly, where is the real motivation switch for kids? Professor Stephen Levitt from the University of Chicago and his team uncovered some surprising insights through a large-scale study involving over 5,700 students, ranging from elementary to high school. Their findings show that the most effective ways to motivate students vary greatly depending on their age. Want to find what truly inspires your child? Looking to unlock their full potential? Stay tuned until the end to discover these game-changing insights. The research showed that visible forms of recognition such as trophies and certificates dramatically increase their motivation to learn. Amazingly, the experiment found that trophies worth just $3 were more effective at improving academic performance than $20 in cash. Why is this? Elementary school students are still at a developmental stage where they struggle to grasp how good grades lead to future income or long-term benefits. However, their desire for recognition and praise from teachers and parents is incredibly strong. Trophies and certificates that remain as physical symbols of the message, "You did great," become powerful motivators. The key factor here is immediacy. The experiment showed that rewards were only effective when given right after the effort. Rewards promised a month later had no impact whatsoever. From a long-term perspective, though, it's important to eventually cultivate the enjoyment of learning itself and the satisfaction of mastery to prevent dependency on external rewards. By middle school, students begin developing an internal drive for growth, while simultaneously becoming highly conscious of how their peers view them. The experiment results showed that non-monetary rewards like trophies were less effective than with elementary students, while interest in monetary rewards increased. Loss aversion mechanisms proved especially effective when students were given $20 upfront and told they would have to return it if their grades didn't improve. The psychology of not wanting to lose something they already had worked powerfully. Additionally, leveraging middle schoolers' competitive spirit through rankings and recognition systems within classes or groups also proved effective. High school students develop a more realistic understanding of both short-term and long-term benefits, becoming more conscious of college entrance exams and future careers. The experiments showed that compared to elementary and middle school students, they were less influenced by simple external rewards, requiring larger monetary incentives to show an effect. A $20 monetary reward demonstrated effectiveness in improving grades, with the loss aversion mechanism, giving money up front with the requirement to return it if grades didn't improve, being particularly effective. Meanwhile, non-monetary rewards like trophies showed almost no effect. At this age, the gap becomes pronounced between students who can make efforts voluntarily without rewards and those who struggle without external motivation. Therefore, beyond simple reward systems, it's important to incorporate long-term motivational approaches such as raising awareness about future careers. The ultimate goal of education is to form habits where students can continue their efforts even without external rewards. These research findings were based on American children, but do they apply to other countries as well? Professor Nisi from the University of California, San Diego and colleagues conducted similar experiments with high school students in America and China. Their results revealed that the effectiveness of motivation differs significantly across cultures. In the experiment, students were randomly divided into two groups, those with incentives and those without. Students in the incentive group were given $25 upfront or an equivalent amount in yuan, with a loss avoidance reward system where they would lose $1 for each mistake made. For American students, the presence of incentives led to improved test scores. In other words, external motivation, knowing they would be rewarded for their efforts, directly translated to better test performance. However, for students in Shanghai, China, there was barely any change in test scores despite the incentives. Why was this the case? The researchers concluded that Shanghai students were already putting forth their maximum effort on exams, so additional incentives had no impact. This research shows that American students can significantly improve their academic test scores when given appropriate incentives. This suggests the importance of designing systems that encourage effort in educational policy. Meanwhile, Shanghai students were already exerting maximum effort on tests even without rewards. How is this habit of making effort without external rewards cultivated? Professor Howard from Monash University and colleagues conducted a meta-analysis of data from over 220,000 students collected through 344 studies worldwide. Their research revealed what types of motivation inspire children's enthusiasm and lead to better academic performance and future success. This research analyzes 4 key indicators: academic performance, well-being, learning persistence, and self-evaluation. Academic performance is measured by objective educational metrics such as test scores. Well-being includes positive elements like positive emotions, enjoyment, and life satisfaction, as well as negative aspects such as anxiety and depression. Learning persistence is evaluated based on criteria such as continued effort and motivation to learn. Self-evaluation is an indicator that measures how students perceive their own abilities and worth, including self-efficacy and self-esteem. The first type is intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation comes from emotions like joy, satisfaction, and excitement about the activity itself, rather than external rewards or punishments. This describes students who study because they find learning itself enjoyable and interesting. For example, a child who loves dinosaurs and devours books about them, or a child who enjoys solving math problems falls into this category. According to Professor Howard's research, intrinsic motivation shows a strong positive correlation with academic performance and well-being. Students who enjoy learning tend to perform better on tests and assessments. Being intrinsically motivated to learn, finding studying interesting, enjoying discovering new things, and getting excited about problem solving not only improves grades, but also has significant positive effects on students' mental health and emotional state. Furthermore, research shows that intrinsic motivation is strongly linked to engagement in learning. Students with high intrinsic motivation tend to focus more during class, participate more actively, and immerse themselves more deeply in learning activities. The second type is identified regulation, also known as purpose-driven motivation. This type of motivation occurs when students recognize and accept the value and importance of learning. While they may not necessarily enjoy studying itself, they engage in it because it aligns with their personal values and long-term goals. For example, a student who studies diligently to achieve a future career aspiration or to gain necessary skills for their dream job falls into this category. The defining characteristic of identified regulation is that students study because they perceive it as important, meaningful, or necessary for achieving their personal goals, unlike intrinsic motivation, which stems from enjoyment of the activity itself. Identified motivation allows students to sustain consistent effort because they understand and accept its value. According to the research, identified regulation shows strong positive associations with effort, learning persistence, and learning engagement. It is also positively correlated with academic performance, sometimes even more strongly than intrinsic motivation. This suggests that helping students see the relevance and importance of their studies can be a powerful way to support their academic success. The third type is ego-involved motivation. This type of motivation is deeply connected to maintaining or enhancing self-worth, self-esteem, and avoiding feelings of guilt or shame. Students driven by ego-involved motivation tend to focus on how they are perceived by others and how their abilities and value are evaluated. Their learning is influenced by concerns about self-evaluation and external validation rather than a genuine interest in the subject. For example, a student who studies because they do not want to disappoint their parents or because they fear being seen as incompetent falls into this category. According to research, ego-involved motivation is associated with increased effort and learning engagement. It shows a positive correlation with persistence in learning and is particularly strongly linked to performance goals, such as the desire to outperform peers. However, research also reveals negative psychological impacts associated with this motivation type. It has been found to have a strong correlation with anxiety, negative emotions, and body image concerns. This suggests that while ego-involved motivation may lead to academic achievements, it can also contribute to significant mental stress and emotional burden. Additionally, as students grow older, the positive association between ego-involved motivation and academic outcomes weakens, while its negative association with mental health concerns strengthens. This indicates that the negative impact of ego-involved motivation becomes more pronounced with age, increasing the risk of stress and anxiety over time. The fourth type is extrinsic motivation. This type of motivation refers to studying to gain external rewards or avoid punishments, rather than for the inherent enjoyment of learning. Examples include if you score 90 points, you'll get an extra hour of smartphone time. Attending cram school because parents insist on it, rather than personal interest. While extrinsic rewards and punishments are commonly used in educational settings and homes, research raises questions about their effectiveness. According to research, there is no strong correlation between extrinsic motivation and academic performance or learning persistence. Rewards and punishments alone do not significantly enhance sustained engagement in learning. Additionally, research suggests that motivation primarily driven by external rewards and punishments may have adverse effects on students' mental well-being. Professor Howard found negative associations with well-being and psychological health, indicating that reliance on extrinsic motivation can contribute to stress and anxiety. Summary. These research findings show that to effectively inspire children's learning motivation, approaches must be tailored to their age and developmental stage. For elementary school students, immediate non-monetary rewards are effective. Recognition experiences that leave tangible forms, like trophies and certificates, provide stronger motivation than money. However, it's crucial that these rewards are given immediately after the effort. At the same time, don't forget to incorporate elements that help children experience the inherent joy of learning. For middle school students, combining loss aversion mechanisms with social recognition creates an effective approach. Systems where rewards are given upfront and must be returned if goals aren't met, along with rankings or recognition systems within groups, heighten motivation. However, it's important not to rely solely on these external motivators, but also to nurture an understanding of why studying matters. For high school students, larger monetary incentives and connections to future careers are effective. However, developing autonomous study habits that don't depend on external rewards becomes a crucial educational goal during this period. As the comparative study between America and China shows, the effectiveness of motivational approaches varies according to cultural background. To find the optimal motivation method for your children, it's important to use these research findings as a reference while exploring approaches that suit each child's individuality and environment. What's clear from the research is that in the long term, the most effective types are intrinsic motivation and purpose-driven motivation. Intrinsic motivation, finding studying enjoyable and discovering new things interesting, and purpose-driven motivation, believing it's important and valuable for one's future, lead not only to improved grades but also to mental health, well-being, and the formation of sustained learning habits. Meanwhile, self-esteem maintenance and external reward motivations, which focus on avoiding punishment or shame and emphasize evaluation from others, may show short-term effects but could cause stress and anxiety in the long run. Finally, let me share some practical methods for nurturing your child's learning motivation, as revealed by research on motivation nudges. 1. Value curiosity, treasure your child's why and how questions, and develop the habit of exploring answers together. 2. Recognize growth, specifically acknowledge and praise not just results, but the process of effort and growth. 3. Share purpose, have age-appropriate conversations about why we study. 4. Provide opportunities for choice, within possible ranges, give children opportunities to choose their learning content and methods. The desire to learn is a natural feeling that everyone inherently possesses. Perhaps our role as adults is to watch over and support that flame so it continues to burn. The switch for children's learning motivation is actually in the hands of us adults. In our next video, we'll break down why social media is so hard to quit and how the algorithms keep us hooked. You open an app for just a few minutes, but suddenly, an hour has passed. Why? Because algorithms learn from your behavior and are designed to make you keep scrolling. Using the System 1 and System 2 theory, we'll explain how intuitive versus deliberate thinking shapes social media algorithms. Through Facebook's example, we'll uncover why you're shown not what you truly want to see, but what keeps you engaged the longest. Finally, with the potato chips theory, we'll reveal how social media is designed just like a bag of chips. Once you start, it's hard to stop. Stay tuned for the next video. If you found this video helpful, please let us know with a like. For those interested in practical solutions using behavioral economics, don't miss our next video. Please subscribe to our channel. New videos are released every Friday at 6 p.m.